Hello, everyone, and welcome to the official launch of the Impact Incentives. We have over 400 people registered for this event, and we're so excited to see this level of interest. But before I get started, I want to let you know that this webinar will be recorded, and we will be sending out the link to the recording along with the slides to all of the participants. We will also post it onto the website. And before I get into the agenda, let me introduce you to our speakers. My name is Anne Gillespie, and I'm the Director of Impact Acceleration for Textile Exchange. And I'm also acting as the Chair for the Impact Alliance. Next, we have Lieven, who is acting as the Director for the Impact Alliance and is also the Chair for the Collaborative Soy Initiative and the Vice President for the Roundtable for Responsible Soy. And we have Jaya, who's the founder and COO of Global Food Partners that works with cage-free eggs. After this, we have Emishe, who is the Managing Director of Proterra Foundation that works with soy and sugar. And the final member of the Impact Alliance is Josefina, who is the Regional Director for the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef. And we're also very, very thrilled to have three guests who are familiar with our work and who will share their perspectives on the Impact Alliance. We have Jean-Francois Timmers, who is the WWF Advocacy Manager for Deforestation Conversion-Free Supply Chains. We have Sheila with ISEAL Innovations and Isabel with MARS Petcare. She's the Global Sustainability Director. So in this webinar, we're going to give you a thorough introduction to impact incentives, impact partnerships, and the Impact Alliance. We'll also hear briefly from the different programs that are represented by the Impact Alliance members, then hear about what others are thinking about us. We have allowed time for Q&A at the end, but I encourage you to write any comments or questions that you have into the question box that is part of the Zoom panel. We may be able to answer some of these as we go, and if we're not able to reply to everything over the course of the next hour, we will follow through with written answers that we will send out along with the links. Now let me pass you on to Lieven, who's going to bring you on a very exciting journey.
Thank you, Anne, and welcome all to this launch webinar, Impact Incentives. I would like to invite you to take a bit distance and a step back and to think about some concepts. So first of all, impact. What does impact mean? According to the dictionary, impact is a strong effect or an influence that someone has on a situation or a person. Next slide then. And what about the meaning of incentive? An incentive, and still using the same dictionary, we would find that an incentive is something that encourages a person to do something, to act or to react. So if we are bearing both concepts in mind, and in the context of finding a solution for grants to incentivize farmers to adopt best practices, and in order to help brands to really achieve the highest impact from meeting their corporate responsibility targets, we've created impact incentives. So together, and next slide, impact incentives are essentially a tool for brands to deliver their expectations back to the start of the supply chain and to provide financial rewards. So how to make impact happen? You've seen a little bit in a very, let's say, quick way, the concepts, and I will try to guide you a bit more in depth now to each of the individual concepts. I will explain the impact incentives first, then the partnerships, and then Anne will take over to explain you what is the Impact Alliance about. So first of all, impact incentives. Impact incentives refer to certificates that are traded in support of a sustainability claim. So you will say it's a book and claim system. And it's indeed the case, but it is derived from a book and claim system, and it functions in a different way as a direct connector between investors, the brands, and producers, the farms on the ground. Companies know exactly whom they are supporting through the impact incentives, which are just an indicator of the transformative impact that they will support. It has nothing to do with the blind credit rate system, which is the traditional book and claim. There you will buy credit, but you do not know from whom, with what an impact, nor the relationship to your supply chain. Impact incentives are form and landscape oriented, with known faces, known stories, and known impacts. How do they work? So first of all, verified materials become impact incentives. In fact, it is mandatory that a third party will verify that the requirements are met, and then the incentives are issued through that third party verifier. The schemes that are part of the alliance, like the Leather Impact Accelerator, the Proterra scheme, Global Food Partners, they will ensure that the requirements are met through the third party verifier. The schemes are the one who will define the criteria for the incentives. Second, impact incentives can be traded, but this trade only happens after the verification. The firms can register the incentives into the platform, and the verified firms are then able to sell the incentives for their volume of output. And third, brands are able to invest. Impact incentives platform enables the brands to purchase these incentives to balance out their use of output materials. Brands and retailers will have an efficient and effective tool to demonstrate their commitment to their CSR goals and to build up the supply of more sustainable commodity they have, and eventually link it up with their physical sourcing. So the system we developed is fast and flexible. We developed a program with the serious challenges that we are facing right now. We really need a powerful solution to deliver the change at the rate that it is needed. So we decided to bypass the costs and the complexity of tracking supply chain, and to instead invest in certificate trading as the main tool for brands to signal their expectations and support of best practices at the start of their supply chains. They are fast because the thinking and technology to support certificate trading already exists, but we are simply applying it to known critical sourcing areas of different commodities. We can avoid the time it would take for brands to map their supply chains and to find ways to trace materials. They are flexible, and this flexibility gives them power. Incentives can be used across multiple commodities that have overlapping supply chains or impacts. As an example, leather and beef are linked to cattle, but both cattle and soy have impacts on deforestation. So all these commodities, in fact, are linked, and the critical thing is the critical area, the deforestation. Impact incentives are efficient, and the real advantages come through that fact. Rather than paying farmers a premium for best practices, then having every stage along the supply chain add their margins to that premium, the end buyers, the brands or the retailers, can directly transfer their support to the critical sourcing areas with just a small fee that is paid for the transfer of the incentives. So this is the first tool that we have developed, impact incentives. But we've also seen that there was a need to go further. And let's say we developed, therefore, a new model, which we call the impact partnership model. And the aim is to get also farmers on board that are willing to apply sustainable practices, but without having the means to do so. And that is what we often see in also in the sustainability certification, that it is the very high level farmers that get certified, and that many marginal farmers are not following. So we developed this impact partnership program, especially for these farms to get access to impact incentives, although they are not yet at the threshold level. And we work together with on-ground partners who will help them, the training, the local support, and in return, they can get through the project partners some seed funding to start transforming their facilities. So how do they work? First of all, an on-ground partner or program becomes a partner. Not only do they work with the farmers, but brands can develop longer-term relationship, so they can all work towards the shared goal with a long-term perspective. Brands are able to invest. Companies now have a way to invest in change where it is needed the most and in developing good sources that they can ultimately source from. And then finally, development on the ground. All of this delivers impact that can be measured through the collection of data and KPIs. All members of the program partnerships can use this to track and report their progress towards their goals. In the same way, this impact partnership are really very powerful and efficient. They connect brands with on-ground program partners to support farmers to meet best practices and set themselves up for eventual incentive trading or physical trading. The program partners, they deliver training, verification, data collection with the farmers while offering stories, data, credibility back to the brands. Although the programs can go indefinitely, the individual farms will only count for incentives for 3 years so that we are constantly moving them to improved practices and make room for new ones to be involved. After 3 years, or maybe less if possible, the farms can trade the incentive directly with the brands and get the money into their accounts directly. All of this will drive up the supply for preferred materials, creating that scale of change that we need to address the issues facing our planet, as well as the scale of supply that brands can ultimately achieve for physical sustainable sourcing. We have a very brief overview right now. You saw it also in the movie, but I go, let's say, a bit more slowly through it so you understand it a little bit better. Let's start with the beef farmer, for instance, in Paraguay, that is looking to trade incentives for animal welfare for the leather impact accelerator. First thing that will happen, a certification body will check that he meets an approved standard, and that they will verify the data that we are asking for. The same certification body will then register the incentives equal to the number of cattle onto the platform, the incentive trading platform. Or it may be that, for instance, a group of farmers in Brazil that is being supported by an on-ground program partner will call for the, let's say, impact incentives. They are not yet at the level of the requirements, but the program partner will help them to meet the requirements, and they will register in the same way the incentives on the platform after verification. Again, the third partner verifier will confirm that the expectations are being met, and they will register, in fact, the incentives onto the platform. The trading platform itself is just a simply technology system that will register, that will trace, and that will hold the whole data of impact incentives and partnerships. When there is demand now come the brands into the picture. When there is a demand, the incentives and the data will then pass over to the facilitator. The facilitator that we are working with as a partner in the Alliance is ACT Commodities, and they have great experience in helping to connect brands to the other end of the supply chain through these types of credit trade system. They come from the carbon trading, so their experience is very much appreciated within the Alliance. They will also take on the task of managing the transfer of the funds, which is really a complicated process because you have to deal with different currencies, different payment terms, and so on. So this is really administrative stuff, which is has to be dealt with a specialized facilitator. The facilitator will then transfer the impact incentives and the data to the brands and transfer the money back to the farm or the impact partners. The brands can now make claims about the support that they are giving to the farmers to meet the best practices and talk about their progress towards goals and targets. The trading platform will also generate data that will be shared on an aggregated level with NGOs, with governments, whatever stakeholder, and of course the impact Alliance itself, so that we can make reports about this. All of this is supported by the Impact Alliance that will ensure the integrity and the value of impact incentives in its broader sense. So this is a brief, let's say, summary. You can have a look again to the video, and I think by this means it becomes a little bit more clear. I will pass over to Anne, who will explain a bit more how we work in the Impact Alliance. Please, Anne, take over.
Thank you, Lieven. So the last point we want to talk about is the Impact Alliance. And the Impact Alliance is a voluntary collaboration between sustainability schemes that provides the oversight on the use of the impact incentives. So the purpose of the Alliance is to use impact incentives to accelerate the positive impacts of sustainability schemes in order to address the key issues facing the future of our planet. The Alliance members work together to define common thresholds such as zero gross deforestation or conversion or the animal welfare. We set the verification procedures and identify the data sets for the different scopes that are attached to the impact incentives. And by working together, we can leverage our separate and shared resources and markets, and we can combine our efforts to create more efficient systems, report out a much greater impact than we ever could individually. And the more that join us, the more powerful we can. Sorry, my mute button hit. Let me go through the members of the Alliance. So at Textile Exchange, we have cotton and leather that we're working with right now. We first developed the whole idea of impact incentives when we were looking for a way to access the very long and complicated supply chain that's attached to leather. So we also see a lot of potential for using impact incentives for cotton, organic cotton, transitional cotton, and more. And this same potential was seen by a lot of other NGOs who have joined the Impact Alliance to use the impact incentives to further their goals. So we have the GRSB, Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, that works with the beef industry, Global Food Partners for cage-free eggs, and Proterra for soy and sugar. And then as Lieven has mentioned, we have our partners who've invested in setting up the impact incentives trading platform, ACT Commodities with their facilitation experiences, and Chainpoint with their IT expertise and services. And I want to take one more moment and show how the Impact Alliance can really accelerate change where it's needed most. So let's look at what would happen if a number of leather brands focus their purchase of impact incentives for deforestation free in a high-risk area. And then what if the automotive and furnishing brands did the same? Now add soy users, and finally beef brands. Soy and cattle are often raised in the same landscapes and sometimes the same farms. So if we can leverage the support of the different markets and focus it on high carbon stock, high conservation value regions, then we have a powerful tool to drive impacts where they're most needed. So now we're going to move on to the scopes. The scopes are the different areas of impact and practice that we have identified. And right now we have 2, and the door is open to bring more in. So Emiche, if you would like to talk to us about DCF.
Lovely, thank you, Anne. Hi everyone, a very warm welcome also from my side. So briefly about what we understood and defined on the deforestation and conversion free, briefly known as DCF. So practically the all impact incentives support farms that are verified to meet the accountability framework definition of zero cross deforestation of conversion, because we would like to avoid creating new definitions, and we really support using definitions that are known and widely accepted on the market. Because the Impact Alliance represents multiple sectors, we have the opportunity to amplify impacts in high-risk landscapes, such as Anne just briefly shown on the previous slide. For example, incentives can be sought for soy, beef and cattle in the Amazon biome, or any sensitive area that we may define. And now I would like to pass back the word, and I will come back a bit later with some more information on sugar cane and soy. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jaya, if you'd like to speak to us about animal welfare.
Sure. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. We see that impact incentives are an important tool to support producers that are verified to standards that meet or exceed the baseline of animal welfare that aligns with producers, the animal welfare that aligns with either the OIE guidelines or in many cases set by third party. Many producers will be able to comply with standards that go beyond the OIE guidelines as well. And the individual Impact Alliance members can recognize higher standards. So at Global Food Partners, we are really excited to work on cage-free as an issue, which goes beyond the OIE, but however, there could be other commodities which aligns within the OIE guidelines. And we also see that the lack of capacity to implement animal welfare is a huge roadblock, and impact partnerships could play a very important role to build that capacity. Thanks, Anne.
Great. Thank you, Jaya. So we're now going to take a look at the different member programs amongst the Alliance. And I'll start again. To tell you about the Leather Impact Accelerator, or what we like to call LEA. And this is a textile exchange program that enables members of the leather value chain to work towards shared expectations in a coordinated way. It provides tools to align their actions towards meaningful global impacts. So the goal of LEA is to leverage and add value to the work that's already being done in the beef and leather industries. And to that end, we use benchmarks that set minimum thresholds for practices and give recognition to those who meet or exceed them. So brands can use impact incentives to provide direct financial support to farmers that meet LEA benchmarks using the trading system. And then the claims framework provides guidance for all LEA participants to make credible claims. We're also working on cotton. We're exploring the ways that we can use impact incentives to deliver support for farmers that are transitioning from conventional to organic or regenerative or other better practices. So stay tuned on this end. Josefina. Josefina, would you like to speak about the beef? All right, it looks like Josefina is having some troubles getting on, so I'll speak for her. So the Global Roundtable for Sustainable Beef is looking at using impact incentives and impact partnerships incentives as an efficient and alternative way to advance continuous improvement in sustainability of the global beef value chain, with a focus on environmental impacts, animal welfare, and other societal concerns. Jaya?
Sure, thanks. Thank you. So Global Food Partners is a Singapore-based consulting group that focuses on helping companies implement their cage-free policies in Asia, because cage-free production overall is nascent in the region. And there are, of course, multiple challenges for businesses to further their cage-free pledges. These include low production, supply chain complexities, seasonal demand in markets which are tourist-driven, and of course, which also increases a huge amount of increased costs. And we feel that until the supply and demand balances out to tip the industry towards normalizing cage-free in this region, impact incentives gives food businesses another option and a path forward to support the production of cage-free eggs. And what we are hoping is that with increased production and competition in the market, it will be much more easier for companies to source segregated or physical cage-free eggs. So we want to get to segregated cage-free eggs, but we believe that impact incentives are a major tool in markets such as Asia, where cage-free production is nascent. Thanks, Anne.
Thank you. And Imishe.
So hi, everyone again. Companies face an increasing number of challenges, and the Proterra standard has been developed to promote social and environmental sustainability through the feed and food supply chains to help support stakeholders in their efforts to continuously improve their day-to-day practices and to help businesses in engaging and implementing the concept of sustainable development. When buying responsible sugar incentives, you can be sure that the companies have been verified and or certified, and they that respect the following points, such as human rights, labor practices, good agricultural practices, including soil fertility, water management, and also improving practices to reduce the use of fertilizers and pesticides. Besides that, deforestation-free supply chains and conserving economic, ecologic, and social sustainability. If we move on to sugar, on to soy after sugarcane, that is the other commodity we are participating in this project with. Incentives granted to farmers support them to engage CSR and sustainable practices that will improve climate change policies to mitigate environmental impact, protect biodiversity, and human health on farm level. We see the Impact Alliance as a powerful tool to improve agricultural practices, transparency and traceability, where physical trade is not possible for a reason or another. And we would really like to help and support farmers and businesses to contribute to the protection of biodiversity by switching to sustainable production, conserving the natural resources, and ensuring that local communities are treated with dignity and respect.
Thanks.
So, Ivan, would you like to tell us more about why companies should be part of the impact incentives and support our actions?
Thank you very much for explaining this, let's say, interest from the different programs from the different alliance partners. So, yeah, why should you be part of it? Let's say it's a new mindset, it's a new solution. There are new results, and this has already been seen by many interested stakeholders. And we are happy that we have some of them here in the webinar. So I will give now the floor to three guest speakers who will share their view on this new concept. We will start with Sheila from ISEAL Innovation Fund. So we are very, very happy that ISEAL Innovation Fund and SECO are supporting the work that we are doing. It allows us to work very structured and fine-tuning the whole concept through surveys, through one-to-one presentations, and to the preparation of the first pilots. So Sheila, I will give you the floor now to explain a bit more about ISEAL Innovation Fund and why you see the value in our project. Please.
Yeah, thanks, Lieven, and thank you to the Impact Alliance team for inviting us to speak here today. And I would just like to say, that it's a really good and very insightful presentation, particularly in seeing how all the different partners are coming together to make this happen. So I was just reflecting, as we were looking at the presentation and just on the project itself and its aims. Our aim as sustainability champions or sustainability supporters, all of us in the call today, ultimately what we want to be able to do is be able to bring everyone along on this pathway towards sustainable approaches. However, we all recognize that achieving sustainability is complex. It is multidimensional, multi-stakeholder, and there's a high degree of interconnectedness that we have to take into account. And as we've seen, with the different partners that you have in your program, the overlapping supply chains is already an indicator of this. So there is no singular approach, no individual organization that can actually achieve this independently. So if we really want to achieve our ambition to find ways to be able to address critical sustainability issues, we need to find ways that are going to be able to engage all stakeholders that can influence conditions on the ground and create that sort of value structure that incentives, incentivizes each one of these stakeholders to play their respective role. And this project presented today really hits the nail on the head with these elements. It's about engaging multiple stakeholders. It's about incentivizing change. And it's utilizing the systems that are there. A lot of people would look at complex supply chains as a hindrance, but in this project we've seen, you've leveraged on that to make it possible. And I just want to go back to what Lieven stated at the beginning of this presentation: impact and incentives. That's the way we're going to move forward with change. These are the kinds of innovation that gets us the scale of change that is needed to address critical sustainability issues. So it's great to see this work happening. So let me just give you a quick intro to ISEAL, and I will link to the project. ISEAL, just very briefly, we're a global membership organization for credible sustainability standards. Our members, as you see on the right-hand side, span multiple industries and sectors, and we support our members through codes of good practices. So from standard setting to assurance to impacts. Next slide, please. So those were foundational elements for credible approaches, for credible sustainability systems. In addition, ISEAL aims to support members to test out innovative approaches towards sustainability improvement. And one way is, as Lieven mentioned, this innovations fund that we have. And it's meant to support members to improve effectiveness and efficiency of systems. This fund is made possible thanks to the Swiss State Secretariat for Economic Affairs, SECO. And the scope for the fund has ranged from data capture to risk-based approaches, outcome-based standards, as well as traceability and scalable solutions. And if you want to know more about the fund and the work that we do with our members, please visit the site, the link that you see on the slide. Next slide. And so the theme for this round of fund was really scalable solutions, and we put a call out to members to challenge them to experiment with approaches to driving the uptake of sustainable practices at a landscape level. And today's presentation really was an example of how such a solution through the work of the various partners that we've seen in the Impact Alliance has been able to achieve this in driving change beyond the production unit, measuring improvement through data and metrics, improving sustainability performance, and ensuring lasting durable change. So we hope to have many more, hear a lot about the success of this project. Thank you, Lieven.
So Jean-Francois, would you like to say a few words on the perspective from WWF?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Do you hear me well?
Very well.
Okay. So yes, as WWF, we are extremely happy to see this innovative approach starting. It's a new way to connect the landscapes and the market that we feel is extremely promising. We know that it is really critical right now to find a way to bring to the producers some real rewarding for their efforts towards sustainable deforestation and conversion-free production. And we've seen many of these certifications trying to do that in the past, but never to the level of scale that was necessary and the level of impact that was needed. And one of the reasons is it was not necessarily focused on the places where you would have the most impact, where the risk of deforestation and conversion would be the highest, and a concrete vision of what real impact was avoided through this support. We also see there are large efforts to mainstream deforestation and conversion-free demand. And there is an awareness in the finance sector. There is a huge mobilization happening on behalf of the market towards Cerrado with the SOS Cerrado Manifesto, which now gathered more than 155 global companies and finance companies together. And we need to connect these demand to mainstreaming cutoff dates to certain large risk landscapes to these specific rewards. So we need to connect the two. We believe that there is conversion efforts happening in that sense, especially in the Cerrado biome, where we are now creating a Cerrado funding coalition where market players and also traders can, and also governments could just join resources to reward producers that decide to go, to produce, to get rid of their right to convert natural ecosystems, and decide to expand their production on already deforested area beyond the legal requirement, so how can we direct finance support to these producers, concrete subsidies to these producers, green support? It can be through market, to carbon market, it can be through direct impact, but we need that market mechanisms allow us to reach scale in that support to the producers. That said, we don't want to see deforestation and conversion cut-off dates strictly linked to specific producers that would receive that support. We are willing to see how we can match support to specific producers, the front runners, the ones that are really making concrete efforts, to broad cut-off dates in broad landscapes. And there is where we are going to gain the progress that we need. So we are very much confident that this new concept has the potential to evolve as an implementation tool for the Cerrado Funding Coalition and other efforts that we are having in the Cerrado, in the Amazon, and also in the Great Plains, North American Great Plains from Mexico to Canada, for cattle and also crop production. These three areas are the three largest conversion fronts on the planet. And if we can work together on these three ones, we can change the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jean, for this very motivated speech, and for the concept of the impact incentives. And for sure, we will have possibilities to have a closer look how this tool can be of an added value for the Cerrado Manifesto. I would like to hand over to Isabel. We thought it's important also to have a point of view of a brand, because the tool that we are developing is really market oriented, and we know that there's a huge need on brand level. So I'm very interested to know, let's say, the perspective from a brand. And Isabel, please let us know what is the perspective of MARS for our impact incentives. Thank you.
Thank you, Lieven, and thank you for the invitation and the opportunity to say a few words on what this could mean from a brand perspective. So we as MARS are absolutely very happy with this initiative. It clearly offers a solution to a need that has clearly been emerging over the last couple of years, at least, from where we are sitting from a brand perspective, on much more collaboration among different brands, different industries, but also different raw materials and different impacts. For a number of reasons, it has become gradually more and more clear that it's only with a real collaborative approach that companies will be able to drive real and lasting change. If I think of MARS, and specifically MARS Petcare, which is what I am responsible for a number of our raw materials, really our volumes are too small to have the right leverage with our suppliers and thus drive meaningful change and impact on the ground. However, working together, taking a collaborative approach, combining efforts, other brands, other industries, we're a true believer that that has real potential to become an actor for change and really driving impact at the end of the supply chain, where it's needed the most in most of the cases. But not only combining efforts and volumes from a demand perspective, as said, multiplying that approach over different raw materials, like we've already heard mentioning soy and beef, and then within those materials, different impacts like deforestation and human rights, working conditions, or animal welfare. It's where you have that combination, where you have that collaborative power. There you create a real chance for a possible solution. And that is what, from a brand perspective, we are really looking for. MARS is super interested, especially MARS Petcare is super interested in exploring this. And we've already started conversations with other partners and with the group of the impact incentives for a pilot on beef leather in the Cerrado. And it's something really looking for in exploring, in understanding, and in driving this forwards and taking the next steps. Sorry. Finally, we're very pleased to also learn that this initiative is recognized and supported by the ISEAL Innovation Fund, as we also just heard on this webinar, as that really adds another layer of credibility to this amazing initiative, which has a real chance of making an impact happen at scale. And with this, I thank you for inviting me, and I hand it over back to you, Lieven.
Thank you, Isabel. And I think that that's great, really great to hear this. For sure, we will continue our discussions for the pilots that we're preparing. And I see that there's a lot of questions in the chat box, but I would like to hand over to Anne, who will help us moderating a bit to these different.
Thank you so much, Isabel, Jean-Francois, and Sheila. And it's wonderful to hear your voice. And as you were speaking, I was just thinking what an incredible set of collaborative mixture that we put together. You know, we can have luxury handbag companies working with supermarket chains and you know, food companies and pet care companies. It's just an interesting mix of people that are going to all collaborate towards common goals. So now we really want to hear from our stakeholders. So we already have a number of questions in our Q&A box. And if you have any further, please keep adding them. And again, if we can't answer everything here, we'll follow up by email. This slide deck and the recording will be sent out to everyone who's registered, and we will post it onto the Impact Incentives website. So I'm going to go through the questions here, and the let's see, the open questions, there's a number of answered ones, so you're welcome to go in and look at those. Tara, you had asked, can you elaborate on the work with cotton? And I'll speak to that one from Textile Exchange. We are really just at the thinking stages of this, but when we look at particularly something like transitional cotton, farmers are going to get a really nice premium on their cotton, or hopefully get a good premium on the cotton when it's organic, because that has a market value that brands are willing to pay for because customers will recognize. But when farmers are making that transition to organic or to other regenerative practices, they really need the support. So this is where the impact partnership model can be a really good one, where brands can direct the financial support to the farmers and help those farmers move towards, you know, that threshold of best practices, whether it's organic, regenerative, or something else. So happy to follow up further online, but we'll go to the next question. Good one. What are the KPIs and how holistic is a set of KPIs? What are safeguards against only certain convenient key performance indicators being chosen by a given partner, producer, or brand, while other practices might undermine real long-term sustainability? And I might answer that one as well, because I've been doing a lot of the work on the KPIs. First of all, the Impact Alliance is setting a base set of key performance indicators or data points that we want to collect from every farmer. And it can be everything from the polygon of the farm and the amount of land that's preserved, to the number of animals, and then some specific details that we're trying to link back to some of those more global frameworks around that are setting targets and definitions. So we're working very closely with the Accountability Framework Initiative, also the Science-Based Target Network, because ultimately we want to be providing data that will deliver value to the brands that are buying the impact incentives, but also deliver value back to the farmers and then us as the Impact Alliance, so that we can look at that impact across the different commodities. So it's a piece of ongoing work. We will finalize that over the coming few weeks, and all of that will be made, quite sure that'll be quite public. The other thing I'd say is if a particular brand wants to add additional data to be collected for their impact incentives, or if a program wants to provide it, that's all possible as well. It's quite a flexible system. All right, next question. What would be the procedure for adding new topics to the scope? For instance, soil-related sustainability criteria. Do any of the other speakers want to answer that one? All right, well, I will.
If you want, Anne, I can take it.
Go ahead, Lieven, yeah.
Yeah, just so for the moment we have two scopes. We have deforestation free, we have animal welfare. And we are now for cotton looking more closely on soil health as an extra scope. And that's therefore we use the framework, the Delta framework developments that are ongoing. So the point is, of course, we cannot have let's say a big number of scopes, but we would really like to focus it on real critical areas. And this is also, let's say, evolving through collaboration of the different members of the Impact Alliance, and of course related to what the market is asking for. But we are very open for adding new scopes to our program. And this will be also structured in procedures, policies and procedures that we are working now also with the whole ISEAL framework that we are in. So I hope this gives you a better view on that.
May I just add a topic that we have practically two categories for topics to the scope, if you mention it like that, Jan, and thank you for your question. One is a general that every partner, every member of the Impact Alliance has to comply with, and that's just the two that Lieven mentioned. And the others are really member specific, so more the crop specific, because there may be some sort of related sustainability criteria that is relevant for cotton, but is not relevant if we talk about animal welfare. So that will be more really the member specific, the partner and the program specific criteria. Hope this clarifies a bit.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to go to the next question. I'm going to give this one back to you, Lieven. How are the credits valued?
Yeah, so let's say it is a market-driven system. And what is the driver for the market is the, let's say, the balance between what the brands are asking for and the brands are willing to contribute to a transition in critical areas, but also a transition that is related to their supply chain. So if there is really, there are many brands that are sourcing from a critical area like the Cerrado, for instance, then you will see that the project that we are developing in the Cerrado will have a higher value because, yeah, this is just supply and demand driven. And we as an organization, we do not want to be involved in any price setting. This is really up to the market.
Great, and I'm going to jump to the next question that's really about how we're designing the impact incentives. It says, how do you address programs that drive impact for farmers in a landscape, but the brands may not be buying from those farmers or that landscape? And where are the brand suppliers in driving scale with this trading platform? Does anybody want to take that one on, or you leave it again? Lieven, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I can take it. So let's say there are two things. Or as a brand, you want to make change really related to your direct supply chain. But very often the supply chain is very opaque, it's complex. Sometimes you will source from a critical area, sometimes not. It is price depending and so on. So this is, let's say, a first way of doing, but you can also say as a brand, we really want to help making a transition of a business. We want that leather is more sustainable in a broader sense. And we will see, in fact, a mix of programs, brands that really want to make a story really related to their supply chain, and other brands that will value a story where they contribute to the transition of the sector.
Perfect. And I'll just say that when we're talking about how to apply the Leather Impact Accelerator, we say to brands, you can either source impact incentives from your supply network as much as you know it, or you can completely decouple and just focus on the areas of the greatest impact that will lead to your broader CSR goals. We had a couple of questions about zero gross deforestation and the definition. That one's easy. The Accountability Framework Initiative has the definitions for zero gross deforestation and conversion. Another question, who does the actual physical verifying and checking of the farmers to meet up the requirements? I can quickly answer that from the leather side. Because we use benchmarks, we actually rely on the different standards that meet those benchmarks. So it would be the certification bodies that are working with those standards that would do the verification. But Emiche, do you want to speak about how that would work for yours, or Jaya for your program?
Sure. On the eggs program, I think we are following the same with Leah, where there is a benchmark that's been set as to what cage-free means, and that could involve management practices, requirements on farm, and third-party certifiers who get approved or whose standards meet the benchmark can verify the farms for the impact incentives.
Thanks. And for sugarcane or soy, it would be also based on the standard. So the standard requirements would apply during the external verification. And there was another question. If I would take that, do you have a target area for responsible soy in Brazil? That's would be, I think, also market driven, actually at the moment concentrating more on the Cerrado, but maybe any region that is defined by the brands that they would like to support. So there is also a certain flexibility, but I think I expect actually in the next upcoming months and years to concentrate more on the on the Cerrado.
Was that you, Jean-François?
Yes, it's me talking. Yes, of course, the places where the impact would be most effective would be the ones where deforestation and conversion risk is highest related to soy. And this is the sense of the answer I've been typing. It is where you're having still increasing levels of conversion in the northern part of the Cerrado, which is called Mato Piba, and in Mato Grosso state. That would be the largest impact. But you're having deforestation and conversion related to soy mostly in all the Cerrado region. Yeah.
Great, thank you. And then going back to you, Jaya, there's one on cage-free eggs. They asked, how would this program benefit food and beverage business on the ground?
Right. A lot of food businesses around the world and growingly in Asia have commitments to only source cage-free eggs. But the cage-free egg production is really nascent in the region, and food businesses have multiple problems, which includes lack of competition, not having enough leverage within the market because the food business's demand is really low. And so coupled with the fact that the cage-free producers themselves don't have the technical ability to shift from a caged egg production to cage-free egg production. So with cage-free eggs, what we believe is that the impact incentives coupled with the impact partnership program can build capacity of the farmers to shift from cage to cage-free, provide the incentives to check or test the whole system, and farmers are able to raise cage-free birds, and then over a period of time transit from a credit system or an incentive system to a segregated system. As in, we're very clear that for food businesses, it does make sense to reach the segregated supply chain, and we believe that the impact incentives are an absolutely essential tool to create that demand within the markets.
Thank you. Great. I'm going to get two questions in one. How can nonprofit organizations help, and how would a project developer work with Leah to identify a partner? And I would say, please contact us offline. I think we have an info@impactincentives.org address. Mine is Anne, ANNE, @textileexchange.org. You'll find all of us on the website, so you can connect with us after that. And then the last open question is, how does the system work with a program such as BCI, which so many brands have invested in? And that's always a complicated one. And I think one of the complications is that BCI uses terminology such as mass balance and book and claim a little bit differently than we do. So I don't have an answer for that. I think it's a discussion that we need to be having. More than anything, it just rounds out the number of options for brands to connect with better sources of cottons and of cotton farming, and then a better way to support all that. So I think that's everything in terms of the Q&A. Reminder that we do have our website, impactincentives.org. Again, a huge thank you to all of the speakers. It's been fabulous having you on. It is such a joy to work with the Impact Alliance members. It's been really one of those perfect collaborations where everybody's really putting in great efforts and great energy. And to everybody who's given us support, including all of you for attending this webinar and hopefully passing the message on to others and engaging with us soon. So in that, I will thank you, and please reach out to us whenever you can. Have a great day. Bye-bye.